All right, good evening, everyone. Our first application is Vassar Kaufman, 222 LLC, TC 5114. Madam Clerk, if you would please read the hearing notice.
Yes, thank you. TC 5413, Vassar Kaufman, 222 LLC. Applicant requests some modifications of special permit conditions associated with TC 5354 in order to allow an internally illuminated sign. Environmental impacts will be assessed on this property located in the Bayshore School District on the northeast corner of Sunrise Highway and Brook Avenue. Town of Islip, Suffolk County, Town Board, Islip Town Clerk Olga Murray.
Okay, is the applicant ready? Please come forward.
Thank you. Of a covenant that was imposed in connection with an application that we made, probably about a year and a half ago, with respect to the conversion of a vitamin shop store into a Starbucks. We made the application. We came in on that application. We had shown the proposed signage, which was basically to just add a box to the existing LA Fitness sign that's already on the property. It's a monument sign or pylon sign. And that box is internally illuminated. And the plan was just to add a box below it for Starbucks. And then we realized after we made the presentation to the town for this light box, that the covenant that was imposed earlier by the town board specifically precluded a light box, even though the sign that was there was already a light box, and what we had shown on the plans was in fact a light box. So I understand we've been working with planning, and planning has proposed some modified language, which I reviewed with my client, and they find to be acceptable.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant at this time? Hearing none, I would ask the department to come up, please.
Thank you, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the board. As stated by Mr. Guardino, this modification simply proposes to authorize the ground sign to be internally illuminated. This was an oversight of the department and the applicant based on old form language that is not typically used anymore, and the department recommends a change based on the site's location along a major highway.
Are there any questions for the department? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to close the hearing.
Oh, no, no one did sign up to speak on this. No, it's got the wrong number on it. Go ahead.
Motion to close the hearing, accept the modification.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is approved. We will now move to TC 5414, and I'd ask the town clerk to please read the hearing notice.
TC 5414, Costco Wholesale Corporation as successor by merger to Price Corporation. Applicant seeks a modification of covenants and restrictions associated on the wrong one, sorry. Covenants associated with TC 5286 to decrease the landscaped area along Beacon Drive in order to expand a single-user bulk retail establishment by 18,372 square feet. Site plan modifications are also part of this application, and the environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located in the Sachem School District on the northeast corner of Beacon Drive and Sunrise Highway, Holbrook, Town of Islip, New York. Islip Town Board, Olga Murray, Town Clerk.
Okay, you may proceed.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor and members of the board. Philip Butler with the law firm of Farrell Fritz. I have some materials to hand up for the record, if you don't mind. So obviously, I'm representing Costco, the applicant. I'm joined here tonight by John Alvarado of Costco, Anthony Stancanelli of Phrenesis Engineering, and John Harder of Atlantic Traffic. The materials you have for you tonight are basically the site plan, which you'll find at Exhibit 5, and a number of other documents I'll make reference to. The project in question is the existing 130,000 square foot Costco wholesale retailer at the junction of Sunrise Highway and Nichols Road in Holbrook. Facility was built in 1993. As a result of change in their business model, the facility is now outmoded and too small for their current needs. Their current business model is approximately 160,000 square feet. So basically, the additional space that we're requesting permission for is needed to upgrade the existing pharmacy, administrative offices, storage, and to add additional retail space. The proposal before you is to expand the building by 18,357 square feet. Importantly, no new services are proposed as part of this application. The objective here is not to generate more membership, rather it is to add storage space, retail space, and basically, as my client put it, sell more to the same customer. Importantly, the expanded building will still comply with the minimum setbacks, particularly with respect to Beacon Drive to the west. There'll be 29 feet to the curb line, 25 feet is required. An added benefit of the expansion will conceivably be that there will be less truck traffic to and from the facility because they will have more storage inside to keep goods on site. The relief we need, as was mentioned, pertains to a landscape, minimum landscape requirement, as well as a parking relaxation. With respect to the landscape relaxation, there's been significant discussion with your planning and engineering departments over how best to mitigate the impact of losing the landscaping on the west side of the building near Beacon Drive. The compromise that was ultimately reached was that there is a stand of very mature trees, about a dozen or so of them along that stretch of road. Those trees are going to be completely maintained. They won't be affected by the construction. We actually got a letter from an arborist who certified that those trees can be protected during construction, so they won't go anywhere, and that will provide adequate screening on that side of the building. In addition to that, Costco has agreed to pay a pretty significant landscape mitigation fee of $94,000, which is based upon the size of the building expansion, as well as the loss of some additional landscaping in the excuse me, in the parking lot that is going to result from restriping some of the parking spaces there. If you look to Exhibit 8 in your materials, you will find photographs of the trees along Beacon Drive. As you can see, they're very substantial. Item 10 is, item 9 is the arborist letter, which discusses how those trees will be protected during construction. So moving on then to the parking relaxation. Again, Costco is not anticipating an increase in membership as a result of this expansion. However, we studied the parking to make sure that the increased floor area would not have an appreciable impact on the parking. We've provided a study from Atlantic Traffic and Engineering. That's Exhibit 10 in your materials. Just skipping to the conclusion, the peak demand for the facility is estimated to be 596 stalls, which leaves a reserve of about 16% of the provided parking, 116 stalls. When that's combined with the thrift store to the south, which has additional parking, there's even more of a reserve based on the peak demand. So that's really all I have for my presentation in chief. I'm happy to answer any questions after Sean gives his report.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time? Hearing none, let's just hear from the department. Sean, if you would.
Thank you. Stated by the applicant, Costco has agreed to pay a mitigation fee of $94,000 to the town, which the town can use to beautify other parts of the Holbrook hamlet. No other adverse impacts are anticipated with the expansion because there's no expansion of services. So based on that, the staff has no objection to the request of the applicant.
Okay. Any questions or comments for the department?
I do.
Certainly, go ahead.
Sean, with Beacon Drive, the future of the property, I heard was sold across the street. Is it still going to be closed off when that project starts?
I think that's still the expectation, but until we know the ultimate end user, we don't know how that's going to be reoriented.
Basically, the west side's going to have a Beacon. It's still going to be, they're going to have trees and plantings when they build this warehouse, right?
So that's certainly something the planning department would expect, yes.
Any other questions or comments? No one has signed up to speak on this particular hearing, so I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the public hearing, issue a negative declaration, and offer the resolution for its adoption.
We have a motion by Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Guardone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The application is approved. Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk, if you would please read the hearing notice for TC 5415, Viola ES Technical Solutions LLC.
Yes, thank you. TC 5415, Veolia ES Technical Solutions LLC. Applicant requests a change of zone from Industrial 1 to Industrial Transition District and a planning board special permit for a vehicle fleet storage yard pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-700 for subdivision F in order to operate a carding company. Site plan modifications are required as part of this application, and the environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located in the Brentwood School District on the south side of Spence Street, approximately 521 feet west of Fifth Avenue, Bay Shore, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York, Islip Town Board, Olga Murray, Town Clerk. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Hello again for the record. Still Philip Butler, still Farrell Fritz, representing Veolia. With me tonight is Kevin Anderson of Veolia, Dan Peterson, Bowler Engineering, and Ethan Chukowski from Atlantic Traffic and Design. In your packet, you'll find Exhibit 4, which is the proposed site plan for the facility. By way of background, the property is 1.4 acres, located in Industrial 1 zone, surrounded by all other industrially zoned properties. The existing warehouse on the site is approximately 7,200 square feet, containing 6,800 gross floor area. This was previously a Hood Dairy Products Distribution Center. More recently, it was an auto repair use. As you can tell from the cover of the packet I handed you, the last use was pretty messy. That's all been cleaned up as part of this project, which is kind of a theme of what we're going to be doing here. So again, we're seeking a change of zone from Industrial 1 to Industrial Transition District for a waste disposal carting company with outdoor vehicle fleet storage. The building footprint will remain exactly as it is today. The proposed fleet of vehicles is approximately 10 to 12 box trucks, and there will be approximately 2 to 3 trailers on site at the loading bays at any given time. The hours of operation for the proposed facility are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. There will be approximately 1 or 2 on-site employees there. Overnight, nothing will be stored on the site except for the trailers that will be parked at the bays and empty service vehicles. We believe this is a good adaptive reuse of the the property. For one, the property has been cleaned up significantly from what was there previously. As you'll see in the proposed site plan, we're going to be adding street trees and shrubs in accordance with the slider regulations. Also repaving new curbs and sidewalks along the street frontage. This use is a clean use as opposed to what's been there before. The facility is highly regulated by the DEC and it's inspected routinely. Nothing that comes to the property in terms of the waste is actually stored there. Everything comes onto the site in the service vehicles and is already containerized and sealed. And it's moved directly onto the trailers that leave the facility on a daily basis, if not every other day, which goes to a facility in New Jersey. So this is not a storage facility of any kind. The warehouse itself won't be used again to store any of the materials. We're going to be keeping PPE absorbents, spare drums and containers, and an electric forklift to move around the containers. Not a big traffic generator. The service vehicles that I spoke of leave in the morning, typically before rush hour, and they're out on routes all day collecting from the customers who are providing the material that they're transporting. They come back in the evening, they unload, everything goes directly onto the trailers. So you're not looking at it coming and going the way you would with an actual warehouse where you have vehicles going in and out throughout the day. We provided a traffic report from Atlantic, which is Exhibit 7 in your materials. So that obviously supports what I'm saying about the traffic generation. The nearest residence is over 800 feet away on the other side of Fifth Avenue behind a row of commercial uses, so we don't think there's going to be any appreciable impact on neighbors. The only relief that we're going to need for this use is going to be a front yard setback for Wisconsin Court, I believe it's called, to the south, which actually this property does not have access to. It's basically an unpaved driveway of some sort. We will be relocating a fence that's there and cleaning up that side of the property, but there's no actual entry onto Wisconsin Court. But the building, because that is technically frontage, is within the front yard setback, so we're going to need a variance for that. So I guess I'll mention that we already have received the proposed covenants from Mr. Colgan. We've reviewed them. We're prepared to sign them. And just for, anecdotally, there's been an existing facility exactly like this one in Wantagh since 2008. It's been operating the entire time without incident, without violation. So just a little bit of precedent that this isn't exactly new. It's new to the town, but it's not a new facility for Long Island. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments?
I do have one comment. Counsel, I thank you for the last two applications where you've been representing your clients and you presented this really nice binder for us. We strive to do our best up here, and we have great assistance from our planning department in preparing us for tonight's meeting. It would have been nice to have had these in advance of tonight's meeting instead of being handed to it 3 minutes before we're asking to vote. It's just a suggestion and a comment. It's not a question, just for future reference, okay?
Understood. All of the materials you have been provided to Sean, but if that's something this board would like to see, I'm happy to do it.
I can't speak for my colleagues, but it's something that I would appreciate.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for the applicant at this point? Okay, thank you, Mr. Butler. Sean?
Excuse me. Thank you. As stated by the applicant, the subject property is surrounded by other industrial properties where the requested industrial transition district is preferred to be located, where it's generally it will have fewer impacts over sensitive uses such as residences. Given that there are no adverse impacts associated with the use, which is not anticipated, based on its nature and location, the staff doesn't really have any objection to the request.
Great, thank you, Sean. Any questions or comments for the department? Again, there are no speakers who have signed up for this particular hearing. So hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the public hearing, accept the negative deck and approve the change.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thank
Very
you.
much. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Our fourth application tonight is Global Team LLC, TC number 5394. Madam Clerk, if you would read the hearing notice.
Yes, thank you. TC 5394 Global Team LI LLC. Applicant requests a change of zone for an overlay of planned landmark preservation district and a town board special permit to Town Code Section 68-451 subdivision A3 in order to modify the density and dimensional requirements of the existing business district for a mixed-use building. Applicant further requests a certificate of appropriateness for the material change of appearance for the existing building. Site plan modifications are part of this application, and the environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located in the Islip School District on the southeast corner of Main Street and Smith Avenue, Islip, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York, Islip Town Board, Olga Murray, Town Clerk. And I also, if I may, Supervisor, yesterday and today, the Town Clerk's office received multiple emails in opposition, which I provided to planning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would assume that we will get those copies also.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Madam Supervisor, members of the town board, Guy W. Germano, 4250 Veterans Memorial Highway, Holbrook, New York, for the applicant. I think we've handed out, yes, you have them. What you have in your handout is replicated on our boards here. I have with me today, representing the applicant, David D. Bush, project architect, Bush Associates, and Ethan Sikorsky, project traffic engineer, Atlantic Traffic and Design. The applicant seeks to adaptively reuse and renovate the Islip Theater, which was built in, if you, yes, that's on your first page. The Islip Theater, which was built in 1947 and located at 410 Main Street, Islip, New York, to provide for a 2,900 square foot ground floor restaurant with an open garden entrance and 23 apartments. In 2003, the then theater owner obtained an approval to expand the number of viewing screens to 3, and with a seating capacity of 821 and a parking uh, requirement of 216.
Thank you.
3 years later, the theater closed and the property was auctioned. From 2009 to 2013, the building remained dark and unkept. After a failed attempt by the property owner to open a daycare center, the theater was renovated and reopened in 2013, closing approximately 2020 due to the impact of COVID. The applicant, Global Team LLC, through its owners, Andrew Christine and Simon Blitz, were responsible for the major renovation and reutilization of the Domini building in Bay Shore in 2006-2007. The reconstruction of the Domini building was one of the first major improvements to Main Street in Bay Shore and helped the revitalization effort, which we can now all admire.
Excuse me, Mr. Germano, if you could please bring the microphone a little bit closer so we could hear you.
Really?
Better.
Okay.
Thank
Got
you.
better? I'm sorry. Mr. Christine and Mr. Blitz continue to own and operate the Domini building with commercial tenants on the ground floor and residential apartment units on the second. Their company also owns and operates or has under construction approximately 400 apartment units and 250,000 square feet of commercial space in approximately 30 buildings located in Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. The average size of these buildings is similar to the size of the theater. The average apartments are, they range from 10 to 20. If you would turn to page A10, you'll see the photograph of the existing theater and the proposed renovation. Opposite each other. They're numbered on the.
We got it.
A2, sorry. Okay. The applicant requests, in order to reuse the theater, the applicant requests a change of zone from the current BD zoning district to the PLP overlay district pursuant to section 6847 of the Islip Town Code. A special permit pursuant to PLP section 668-451A3 required to modify the density and dimensional requirements of the existing business district in order to permit the reutilization of the theater. Specifically, we request an increase in the FAR from the existing 1 to 2.1, an increase in the height for a small portion of the building from the existing 40.6 feet, 40 feet and 6 inches to 50 feet, to permit the existing lot area, corner lot, and second front yard and rear setbacks to remain as they currently exist. A certificate of appropriateness from the planning board for the change of the appearance of the existing building pursuant to sections PLP section 68-452 is also required in order to permit the adaptive conversion of the theater into a restaurant and loft apartments. I'm going to turn your attention to parking, which is an issue that we discussed with the planning board. The parking does not exist on the site, and the site doesn't permit parking. In 2003, the town board approved a special permit and variances for the 3-screen theater with a seating capacity of 821, requiring 216 spaces under the code. The conditions of the approval provided for, among other things, the applicant to improve the parking lot on Smith Street, Lot 5, pursuant to the requirements of the planning board. And I have a copy. Yes, Dave. On this, I've highlighted the requirement on the second page. The proposed adaptive reuse requires 78 parking spaces pursuant to the current town code. This is a reduction from the prior approval of 216 spaces by approximately 138. Of the 78 spaces, 41 spaces are required under the parking code for the apartments and 37 for the proposed restaurant. Given the downtown location, the number of studio apartments, 16, there's 16 studios, 2 one-bedrooms, and 5 duplexes. We believe the planning department would recommend a relaxation of the to about 35 spaces for the apartment part of the project. Our traffic report estimates a peak overnight parking demand of 28 spaces. This estimate is also supported by LKMA, the town's traffic consultant. As a condition of approval, the applicant proposes to renovate the Smith Street Town Parking Lot number 5, pursuant to design approved by the Planning Department, Engineering, and DPW. Now, if you turn to A11, you'll see the configuration that's been approved. The redesigned lot will contain 50 usable spaces, and the cost for the renovation, including prevailing wage, which is required, even though we're not a town, we're required to do prevailing wage on town property. The cost for the renovation, including prevailing wage requirements, is approximately $372,700. I have here a copy of the estimate of the cost. It also includes 4 EV charging stations, as well as lighting that was recommended, decorative lighting, drainage, and other improvements. It's a sharp contrast to the current configuration of the parking lot, much of which is not usable. At this time, I would like to introduce the architect, Mr. David Bush, to review with the board the landmark significance of the theater and its place in the community pursuant to the requirements of the PLP overlay district. He will also walk the board through the design configuration of the proposed loft apartments and restaurant.
Thank you, Guy. Good evening, Supervisor, members of the board, members of the community. Thank you for hearing us tonight. My name is David Bush, BUSCH, registered architect, with offices located at 90 West Main Street, Bay Shore, New York. On behalf of the owners of Global Team LLC, as Guy had presented, we're seeking to change the zone application to a PLP for mixed-use building, along with a certificate of appropriateness. When we review the Planned Landmark Preservation Overlay District, or PLP, within section 68-447, legislative intent, and I'm going to paraphrase here. The legislative intent reads as follows. The PLP is designed to provide regulations and special conditions to enhance, perpetuate, and use places, buildings having a special character and special historic or aesthetic interest or value. More specifically, it speaks to 7 points: to promote economic and general welfare, to safeguard significant features of the town's historic, cultural heritage through physical evidence of the town's evolution, foster civic pride and beauty of the past, to encourage design in the vicinity of such significant historic and cultural features with standards that protect and upgrade the character and value. can recommend new uses to the landmarks that are unused or underused. Within the application submitted to the town board, we include a documented titled sheet that says Islip Theater Cultural and Community Overview. I believe it's a 4-page document. To refine that, we look at the historical and cultural significance of the building. Opening in 1947, the Islip Theater is a historical and culturally significant building. The Islip Theater was designed by an architect named John Eberson, an American architect who is internationally renowned for movie theater designs and described as the Johnny Appleseed of theater goers. In the 1920s, he created a movie theater design known as the atmospheric style. In many respects, John Eberson is distinguished as the Frank Lloyd Wright of theater architecture. Mr. Eberson has 27 theaters on the National Historical Places as of 2008. Inherent in the adaptive reuse of the Islip Theater building, the essence of another one of Mr. Eberson's historic works are preserved. Within the community, the theater was used as an educational support component. Historically, there have been events including community and children-geared activities. The theater supported Islip school programs. An example, a class assigned reading might have been the Polar Express, and in 2004, when it was, the teachers and parent groups, the parents as reading partners, would schedule viewings of the Polar Express as a movie, and afterwards engage in academic dialogue and children. The theater was a place for childhood milestones, such as graduation, birthday parties. Over the years, as we all know, local to Islip, the Islip Theater planned Halloween activities with community members. Even during its revitalization in 2013, they maintained the Halloween parties and revitalization attempts with the community. The theater was locally operated, locally owned, and affordable. This proposal is for the adaptive reuse of the theater. It presents an opportunity to maintain a locally distinguished, culturally significant building, to revitalize its brick and masonry facades, and anchor the western gateway and Main Street of the hamlet of Islip. As presented in the cover sheet rendering, sheet A1, the general appearance and character regional structure will be maintained. The existing brick masonry walls and cast stone parapet details along with Main Street are preserved. Along Main Street, existing brick architecture is complemented with features such as large-scale industrial windows, sidewalk canopies, and metal storefront details. A new simulated cast stone base is introduced, new brick matching the existing, and along the west, the existing otherwise long-running masonry wall is scaled with uniform industrial window punctures and a metal-clad glass-appointed architectural feature housing the lofts. Key features in the movie theater are maintained. The primary footprint of the building is maintained. At the corner of Main Street and Smith Avenue at the west side, the existing single-story entry pavilion is preserved. It is preserved but opened up to the sky. It is presented as an unroofed pedestrian garden entry to the restaurant. At grade, along Smith Street, the currently unplanned site is redesigned to provide for pedestrian space, including landscape plantings, sitting space, bike racks, resident patio, and private outdoor dining space. Along the street, to the east side of Smith Street, the curb area is carved out for a pedestrian drop-off, and the town-approved street lamps and screen dumpster enclosure are placed. It's significant to reflect upon the heritage of the building as we did. This is not a proposal to knock down a culturally significant building, but an opportunity to maintain an Islip landmark. If I can ask you to look at the comparison sheet, the existing versus proposed, which is sheet A2. Again, just quick reflection, we see Main Street. When we see side by side, we maintain the building and structure with new punctures, new complements. We adapt the entry to serve as the open entry garden. And along the west elevation, we introduced the loft as the highlight to the west gate. Okay. That's a nice comparison. On sheet A.3, there's an unroofed entry garden, some images of the concept, point being again, pulling the roof off the space, preserving the exterior brick walls, introducing some garden seating, things like that. Sheet A4, there's the typical loft apartments, the concepts for them, opening up, maintaining brick where we can, masonry, and introducing a nicer appointed loft apartment space. There's even a tenant space. If you look at sheet A5 on the third floor, it's actually an interior of the building open to the sky, outdoor patio space. So again, maintaining the apartment use within the building footprint, but an open to the sky third floor element. If we look at the sheet A6, as a mixed use building of both apartments and residents, the new program adapts the existing footprint and maintains the existing setbacks. And when we speak about a height raise and we reflect upon the rendering, we see that the front parapet of the building is at approximately 40 foot 6 inches. The 50 foot occurs within the lofts in the middle of the building. So again, if you look back at the perspective, that perspective accurately demonstrates the height of the lofts. So it's not a street front, main street felt height because it's occurring up in the middle of the building. You can imagine if we took a boat and turned it upside down, that high point is in the middle, right? We're seeing things from the street. The ground floor plan provides for a restaurant along Main Street, 4 studio apartments, some fitness space, and service space. Within the package, you'll see floor plans for the second, third, and fourth floor. They represent the remaining total of the 23 apartment units, which are primarily comprised of studios, longer studios with a window wall facade. The fourth floor has no additional units. The fourth floor of the building is actually the third floor apartment. There's an interior stair, so it's just a loft within the building itself. So this is, if you will, kind of a 3-story walk-up, although we're providing elevator service with a unit inside that has a stair to the fourth floor. When we reflect upon the existing building and the theater, we have I apologize, which is sheet 810 and 812, sheets 810 and 812. The existing theater, as noted, and I just want to clarify for the record, is theoed with 862 seats, 862 seats as a triplex. That's a requirement for 216 parking spaces, and this doesn't include the employee parking, etc. On sheet 11 as reflected, we see the site plan improvements for parking lot field 5, which Guy had walked us through. In summary, this proposal provides for the legislative intent of the PLP district. It provides for preservation and perpetuation, preservation of landmark and culturally significant structure at the west end of Main Street as a significant gateway to Islip Hamlet, preservation of piece of movie palace history by preserving the envelope of the theater building as designed by an internationally renowned architect, Mr. John Everson. Preserving the Main Street iconic mass, the exterior building structure will perpetuate the memories of the community. Main Street, it provides for Main Street programmatic enhancement. The adaptive reuse is a live performance of the theater and brings to Main Street community its continued success. The mixed-use building with restaurant at ground floor and apartments above is a proven staple to the success of Main Street district fabrics. The program promotes more patrons to visit, engage, and participate in the Main Street community, supporting retail and other restaurants. The theater wants to be a part of our progress. Within its setting, the building is in a way a progression of the Islip Main Street and what it truly wants to become, an anchor to the west end of Main Street and continued community revitalization. Thank you, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Are there any questions now for the applicant, for Mr. Germano or Mr. Bush? Because otherwise I'd like to hear from the department, because we do have quite a number of speakers. You'll have an opportunity to come back up after you've heard all the speakers and address any of their concerns.
Okay, but we did have, our traffic consultant is here. I know you have a copy of the report.
Okay, well, that's good that he's here. Again, there are a lot of people that I think are going to be addressing those issues, so his
Well,
comments might be better served after we hear from
That's
the
fine.
public.
I-
Okay?
I only had one question,
Sure.
and it's really more addressed to the architect, if he could. Your presentation, including the exhibits that you provided, talks about projects that the developer has done, mixed-use projects like this in the Domini Building in Bayshore and another project in Brooklyn. And then you also spoke about taking an existing structure of historic significance on Main Street in Islip and preserving it while turning it into residential units. Is there any history, and I want to bring the focus specifically to Main Street in Islip. Are there any other buildings in Main Street in Islip that a proposal like that has been done, where we've taken a building of historical significance, converted it to residential, but maintained the physical character of the historic structure on Main Street in Islip?
I appreciate the question. Actually, this building is at the west end, bookending the west end of the Main Street hamlet. In Islip, to the east end, we have the Masonic Temple. That building is a perfect example of a prior use with an existing structure that was maintained and readapted under a similar application of apartment use.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you. As stated by the applicant, this could be an opportunity for the adaptive reuse of an older building in downtown Islip. The applicant has provided information that would support the building's designation within the Planned Landmark Preservation District. Generally, the department is supportive of apartments and restaurants in downtown areas where the residents can help support local businesses. The planning department and public works are working with the applicant as to how best to address the parking relaxation, which might entail municipal law improvements, adding parking off-site, and/or maybe fees for parking licenses. We've recently been informed of newer parking data that the staff would like to review with the town's traffic consultant. Based on that, it might be advisable for the board to reserve decision tonight.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Any questions to the department at this point? All right, let's,
I have one
I'm
question.
sorry, go ahead.
Sean, since I was on the board and worked with you with the Masonic Temple, can you tell me the difference between the Masonic Temple for the audience and the movie theater?
Yep. The key difference is that the Masonic Temple did provide some parking in the rear lot and purchased another lot to provide some of the parking. It's also smaller in size. It's 10 units and it's strictly apartments. It's not a mixed-use building.
Thanks.
Certainly.
Sean, I couldn't really understand you. I apologize, but I thought you said that you're working with the developer for other off-site parking? Was that what you said? I couldn't
Yes.
really understand you.
It's part of the discussion, yes.
So other than the municipal lot?
Correct.
Do you know where you're talking about, or?
I mean, the only clear-cut ones that we've identified potentially as for right now might be adding spots to Town Hall West at 401.
Okay, any other questions at this point? All right, let's go to the cards, because as I said, we have quite a number of speakers. And again, everyone has 3 minutes. Not really a question and answer, but this is your opportunity to put your comments forward. The first speaker is Kenny Gesick.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, Town Council, good to see you again. I'm here today on behalf of the Islip Methodist Church. I was listening to this gentleman talking about what a historic site the movie theater is, the architecture, and it is. Only thing is, 2 doors down, you have the Islip Methodist Church. It's been there in existence over 200 years, and for the past approximately 125, 130 years, we have been there. And we've been through struggles, and we've made it through. The last one being COVID. Well, now we're facing another problem. We need our parishioners to come to church, and they have to drive to get there. And finding parking spots is difficult at times. Right now, I heard Mr. Germano say that there's gonna be 50 spots there. Well, I took a ride through there today. There's 50 spots there. It came across as being there's gonna be more spots. There are 50 spots there. There could be more, except there's some flooding where they couldn't stripe the parking lot. We also have a thrift shop there that runs 4 days a week. The thrift shop puts in place probably about a quarter of our budget for the year. We do not have a big budget. We aren't a big thriving church, but we're a church-based community in our community. We need that thrift shop, and people come from Brentwood, they come from CI, they come from out of the town because we offer services, we offer goods at very minimal prices. And if they can't find parking spots, they're gonna stop coming, and we're not gonna be able to support our church. We also have a preschool there, Islip Community Preschool. Has been in existence over 50 years. Now, most of the parking for them, when they're dropping off, is either in the lot in the back or it's on Church Avenue. I live on Church Avenue at the southern end, and coming up that road, 9 o'clock in the morning, I can see how many kids are being dropped off there. My concern is that people aren't gonna be able to park over there. Now we're gonna be able to put more people on Church Avenue to drop their kids off and create a hazard for our children there. Also, Sunday mornings, I'm concerned about the people that are gonna be over at the new building, parking in front where our parishioners, you're looking at one of the younger ones there. Most of them need help getting in. We've put in a ramp over there, and we need all the spots we can get. You might be opening up another one, but you're gonna be closing something, possibly closing a place where people come to worship, a place where people come to get married, a place where people share fellowship. We have a lot going on there. I just don't know if everybody realizes how much that means to the community and the effect you're gonna have if those doors have to close. Saying that, thank you for hearing me, and I hope you think long and deep about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Michael Leo.
Thank you. My name is Mike Leo. I am a commissioner with the Islip Fire District. So I'm representing the fire district and the fire department. We've been there since 1886. The cinemas opened in 1947. I can probably tell you exactly how this is going to go because we had that relationship with the movie theater. So the movie theater was a little easier to manage because they had set movie times. So we would know to send somebody out. It all has to do with parking and standing. That's our only egress is Monell Avenue. All our fire trucks come out on Monell. That's Smith. I'm sorry, Smith. All our fire trucks come out on Smith, except for the ambulance, which comes out. And because it's small, it's the only one that can come out of Monell, but all our large trucks come out of Smith. So we've had accidents. No matter how many signs we put up, no matter how much the movie theater always said, when they reopened, they were like, oh, we have this, we're gonna put signs everywhere. We don't want to get in the business of towing and tickets. That's not what we want to do. We want to respond to emergencies in an efficient manner. And it's very, very important that we're basically coming out for the entire town or the south end of the town from that location. And having the movie theater there was horrible. And then you just think about, like, I know they're doing a cut-in. It's just not going to cut it. People don't listen to signs. People are inherently lazy, right? They want to be as close to their building as they possibly can be. That happens. And we've seen it. So we've seen it from 1947 to when they closed down and then reopened again. And we were constantly in there over and over and over again. When we do risk assessment, we try to do some predictive modeling of where we'll see fires or how we're going to strategically do things as a fire district. I'll tell you right now, one of the hardest things we have is the variables. The variables are the occupants. So just say in a fire in a building, we don't know what those people are going to do because they're variables. It's the same thing. You're going to have people park. It's all these variables in the building. The restaurant is going to be a real big problem for us. As far as handling the extra capacity of people, that affects us minimally. But parking and standing, that's what this is all about. It will slow us down, and then lives will be affected. And like I always say, it's easy for people, like we have these incidents where people read about in the paper, and then everybody who reads about it gets to turn the page. The family, they don't get to turn the page. They're stuck on that page for the rest of their life. We save people. That's our mission. And we need to be able to do our job. And this will impede us. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. Paula Alms.
Hello, everybody on the town board. I'm Paula Almas. I live on Smith Avenue between Main Street and Raymond. right in the middle. And I've lived there for 30 years. And my concern, like the other two, is parking. Tenants, we're going to have tenants from 23 apartments, restaurant workers, restaurant patrons, and then the regular people who are parking there for the church, the firehouse, the nursery school. It's way too many cars for that town parking lot. And when the renovations are complete, because I got the information, there's going to be at least 10 less spots because some are going towards the electric parking spots with electrical cars. And I just want you to know that it's full now at a lot of times. That parking lot will be full. It's occasionally full where we're used to people, like it's okay on a parade day or a firehouse function or like the street fair and things like that when it's closed. And when I've been there since the movie theater as well. So I remember the blockbuster movies where for a whole weekend there were cars parked in front of your house. We lived with that because it was temporary. But this isn't going to be temporary because, like the commissioner from the firehouse said, people are lazy. They're not going to cross the street, especially on Main Street. It's dangerous. They're not going to cross the street to go to their, to come back from a supermarket or a bank or whatever to go to their apartment. So Smith Avenue is a lot narrower than most other streets. I'm sure of it because years ago I tried to get a sidewalk on Smith Avenue because it's a main street to a public school when my kids were little. And I was denied because of the street width. It wasn't wide enough for the sidewalks. But people on one side would have to give up 3 feet of their property. And so we never put the sidewalks in. I see the sign, the pictures are beautiful. They're beautiful, but I feel like the street is exaggerated wider. That's an exaggeration. Don't go by that because, I mean, I'm sure it's all to code, but it looks like you could get 2 cars at the end of Smith Avenue on Main Street, but that's not really true because it's so narrow down there and making a left, it's so hard. But I'm so deviating. God. So I just want you to know it's narrower than other streets. And right now, if cars are parked on both sides of the street, a fire truck and a bus can't get through. And we are a main road to a public school where there's buses going down all the time. Your traffic study was done on a day that school was not in session. The traffic study was not done in a time frame that should have been allowed. It was done during like the end of COVID or in the middle of COVID or something. So I'm for changing the firehouse. I mean, the movie theater. I'm for it. I'm for changing it. I'm for making it look better. I live here. I want this place to look better. But I want my family to be able to park in front of my house when they're coming to my house. I don't want strangers' cars parked on the road all the time. That's the difference. So it's parking is my main concern. Traffic will definitely increase. And I would consider try making it a smaller apartment building. The Masonic Temple is really nice. It came with a parking lot. It's a smaller scale. And I think the restaurant, 23 apartments, the workers for the restaurant, where is everyone going to park? It's not fair. It's going to decrease the value of our houses when this strange cars parked in front of your house all day long.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Dennis Polizito.
Good evening. How are you? My name is Dennis Palisato. I live on Smith Avenue. I'm just adjacent, just south of the proposed. I did write an email last night. I was essentially going to read from that tonight. I don't know if anyone had seen the email as of yet. Basically, this has been brought before the planning board, this project, and approved behind the backs of those who reside here, meaning us and the rest of the neighbors here, in an underhanded manner, how I feel, without actually consulting us. At the original planning board meeting, it was stated that this item would be shelved until further review of the project to be made. Shortly thereafter, the planning board approved Global's project, and no notice of the second meeting was ever brought to our attention where we could speak up. None of the concerns were brought up at the original meeting were addressed, and the planning board approved it anyway. It appears that the approval was under guise of additional quote-unquote benefits to the town with nothing to do with the project in question. Improvements to a parking lot at 401 Main Street, for example. There was more than enough support and reasoning to deny this project in the original meeting, as the planned project does not make any sense for a variety of reasons, including a lack of private parking for the proposed tenants, increased congestion on an already busy and narrow street which handles traffic not only to Sherwood Elementary School, but also is the main exit for Islip Fire Department during emergencies. In addition, there's a bus stop on Main Street next to Smith Avenue on the corner of the property, as well as another on the northwest corner diagonally across the street in front of 401 Main. The, the area simply cannot handle the additional congestion this project will bring. I happened to be working from home a couple weeks ago, which was also the same day that a soil testing company had come and was doing testing at the movie theater. After I spoke with them, they stated that the testing they were doing was typical to new construction, which led me to believe that they now wish to knock the building down and reconstruct something bigger to accommodate their plans. The images that you see here are clearly bigger than the existing structure. So I don't know structurally how it would support any additional weight, but so I wish I also understand that they wish to redo the town parking lot, which is next to my property. Right next to that town parking lot, which they feel they could just take over for their tenants. Now, there's also a liability issue to the town with that. You now have increased congestion on a regular basis. Is the town responsible for any slips and falls from these people that are there on a daily basis? There was supposed to be, pardon me. There was supposed to be the 4 charging stations for electric vehicles. Honestly, I've never seen an electric vehicle in that parking lot, so it would only be a waste of time and money. At the rate that the parking lot is also maintained, it would be overgrown with weeds, and the charging stations would never be maintained properly to begin with. As well as their traffic study, which they had done during the height of COVID, and they were counting cars in the parking lot at 10 p.m. at night to verify whether they could actually have enough parking.
It looks like your time is up. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next speaker, Fred Herman. Fred Herman. Okay. Owen McCaffrey. Alrighty. Linda Linsenbarth.
Hi. I was unsure that I had anything to say. I'm the owner of So What's New, which is on the west side of Smith Street. And when I give directions to my business, I say, when you see the movie theater, you will see a parking lot right next to it. Guess what? It's where you park. So you know that I have a lot of concerns. And now I've been in business 20 years. And as you were talking historically, by the way, the reason I am in Islip is that I had young children when we moved here in 1988. And I like the idea of the school and the church and the movie theater entertainment for my small children without having to cross Main Street. Okay, neither here nor there. I have concerns about what I'm going to do in the future, what decisions I have to make about my business. I want to know how long this construction will take. I can see that we're going to always have problems with parking. I have problems with parking now. You have a fair and I have to go out there and say, hey, get out of my parking lot. People, like we've said, are lazy. But I want to know how long this construction will take, because as a cynic, I'm expecting that this will go through. You have no reasons not to approve it eventually when parking situations are set. So, because construction will be a big, big problem for me. And in terms of the construction workers, and where they want to park and where they need to park to empty their stuff. And I got to say, looking at the plans, that garbage dumpster isn't going to be big enough. I can tell you right now, my garbage dumpster for 2 apartments and 1 business is not big enough because people dump stuff a lot. So, do I have anything else to recommend? Oh, crossing the street was a good point about nobody will want to park in 401 because crossing the street can be difficult. Have you guys considered a new light at Smith so that, because I agree, turning left to go to Wendy's or McDonald's or the post office is difficult. So a light might make things easier, and I would just really appreciate consideration for those in the neighborhood with the construction, because my old ladies aren't going to be happy. And guess who's one of them? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next speaker, Douglas Madlow. I hope I had that right. Madeline? Oh, okay.
Reverend Doug Madeline, pastor of the Islip United Methodist Church. We've been on Main Street since 1866, and prior to that, we were on Main Street in 1833. My parishioners have concerns. I'd like to voice them. We feel that 23 residential units, apartments, and a bar restaurant is an overuse of the property. And there's a serious concern with traffic. We can't, it's hard. I say we can't. It's difficult to get onto Main Street coming off Smith or Church Street anytime, especially during the rush hour. This is going to be with 23 units, with 2-3 cars per unit, maybe 1 car per unit. It really changes the character of Main Street in Islip. We love Islip. I love Islip. And I do live in the village of Lindenhurst. I'm generally on the other side. And with all due respect to all of you gentlemen, doing a great job. But there is a lot of concerns that downtown Islip is going to change with that. Traffic's going to be an issue. You got traffic engineers. This could change the character of downtown Islip. There's concern about that. And just one other point, the parking lot is owned by the town, but it's in the middle of a residential neighborhood. You really basically look at it, it's all corners outside of the Islip Fire Department, which is more on Monell. So if you have a restaurant and you have people coming and going day in and day out, because that's where they live, and that's just the way it is, and it's going to be a major disruption to the neighborhood if you have that much people coming in, and you have a beautiful, wonderful, quiet neighborhood here in Islip. So I hope you really seriously look at all the aspects of this development, because things will change a lot for downtown Islip if this goes ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. That are all the parts that we have. I would like to ask the applicant if they want to come up to address any of those concerns, although having heard everything that we heard here tonight, and based on the comments that the department made, there are a lot of issues and concerns to be raised. I've taken a lot of notes. A lot of good points were raised that we need to have clarified. So does anyone have any other questions or comments? Because otherwise, I think perhaps we should entertain a motion to perhaps close the public hearing and recess this until we can get some more of these answers and address some of the concerns.
I guess my question would be to Sean. I just want to make sure of the remarks that you offered when you first spoke, which is that the planning department's negotiations with the applicant continue.
Yes.
As part of those negotiations, you were interested in hearing what the public had to say today so that you could represent that in your negotiations with the developer, right? And your recommendation to this board is that we close the public hearing and reserve decision so that you can continue your negotiations with the developer based on some of the comments that were made tonight.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right,
Sean, did we, in the course of this, have we talked to the fire department? Has anybody from your department or the applicant?
I don't know if the applicant reached out to them.
That's a major.
the applicant seems to indicate that they have, but I think that perhaps a conversation with the department and the planning department would be in order. Thank you, Councilman, for bringing that up.
And the applicant will also, again, engage with the fire department and some of the people in the churches in the area to work.
All right, so we have a motion
Motion to close-
by
Motion to
Councilman,
close the public hearing, reserve decision.
Second.
and we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? It is approved. The recess is approved, and the hearing is closed. Okay, we move to the last item on the agenda, which is a decision item, so there is no comment on this. But I would ask Sean if he would to please review this. All right, Sean, so we have, I guess, does the clerk have to read the hearing notice as a decision item? I don't think so. All right, so that was TC 5405, 135 Pioneer Drive, Bay Shore. I know we have an email here, and there were some comments made by the department in regard to it, and I think it'd be important to put that on the record and a general overview of what we have here before us.
Sure, and I'll try to be brief. As the board recalls, this was reserved at the November change of zone hearing. And the primary concerns raised predominantly by the Brentwood School District, Legislator Gonzalez, were consistency with the comprehensive plan, whether this was a spot zoning, environmental justice was raised a concern, as well as the traffic generated by the use. The planning department disagrees with the school district's position that the rezoning of the subject property constitutes spot zoning. As the board is familiar, there is a plethora of industrial zoning up and down Pioneer Drive. What's really unique is that there was any business zoning on this stretch because there's no traditional business one uses here. They're all predominantly warehouses, or even the business one portion of the block is owned by the Long Island Railroad, and that's used for outside storage, which is consistent with an industrial area. They also stated that the proposed rezoning is inconsistent with a comprehensive plan. Again, that's just not true. The town has had a longstanding policy of promoting industrial developments in appropriate locations because it does provide a great tax base for the town and the school districts, as well as providing high-quality jobs for the town's residents. So that's always been a goal of the town to see to it that those jobs and companies are located in the appropriate areas. And again, I think we've already established this is an industrial area. With regards to environmental justice, it's important to note that this property has been industrially zoned for the most part for many years. And whether this,
Could you just say that again? I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, that this property, the bulk of it has been zoned industrial one for many years.
Okay.
Whether this property is zoned industrial one or industrial transition district, which is what they're asking it to be, the impacts are not fundamentally changing, particularly in light of the limitations being placed on the property via the proposed covenants and restrictions, which the applicant has agreed to. They agreed that this will not be used as a transfer station, and the only way to modify that covenant, should the board approve this application tonight, would be for that applicant to, or the property owner to appear back before this board and modify that covenant. And we would address the concerns of whether or not it should be a transfer station at that time. And lastly, the the planning department does not anticipate that a facility of this size will generate any more traffic than other uses already permitted in the industrial one district. It's not a very large building, it's not a very large property. And so again, we don't think that this change is going to fundamentally affect this area adversely anyway.
Okay, so to the issue of the transfer station, is it in there that it will not be used as a transfer station? Okay, so it's.
It's in the covenant.
All right, so it's
Says
very
except for
clear.
recycling center,
Okay.
which I should
A
clarify,
recycling center.
is, it's not a true recycling center. They're not sorting all sorts. It's not like one of our wrap centers where they're sorting a plethora of things. It's
Exactly.
just for things that are redeemed in accordance with New York State bottle laws. So we are proposing changes that hopefully the board will see soon that distinguishes a recycling center from a redemption center, because they do have fundamentally very different impacts. And this wouldn't be a recycling center under those new definitions. So I just want to be clear that we'll be addressing this hopefully for the long term.
Okay. But I just want those assurances from you that it is in the covenants that it cannot be used as a transfer station.
1A5 is prohibited.
Great. All right, are there any questions or comments for Sean at this point? Okay,
Sean, I am sympathetic to the arguments of environmental justice. This application tonight is in essence to approve what is going on at the site currently.
Right.
And has been going on at the site for many years.
Right.
So the idea of environmental justice is we don't want anything new coming into our community because we have, in essence, an overflow of this, but this isn't anything new coming into the community. This is already there. It's been there. It's functioning in this capacity for many years.
Yes.
all right. If there are no other comments or questions, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I would make a motion to issue the negative declaration and move the resolution for its adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have 3 in favor, 1 abstention. The motion carries. There is no other business to come before us. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councilman Cochran, second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.